Disgusting. Weird habits of royals in history. Power can have a strange and disturbing effect on people, especially those who rule over others. European royalty in the age of absolute power may have seemed dignified and refined, but they hid a dirty secret. Their palaces were filthy and disease-ridden, often forcing them to flee from their own homes. We will explore the secrets of royal hygiene and how Europe's monarchs lived in filth. We will uncover the bizarre and disgusting customs they followed to keep themselves clean, and how they contrasted with the squalor of the common people. We will also examine how power influenced their behavior and made them act in irrational and shocking ways. Royals are not as perfect as it seems. Wealth, power, and fame can be a curse that drives people to madness and makes them do the unthinkable. Queen Elizabeth I. In the era of Queen Elizabeth I, hygiene practices were quite different from what we know today. Bathing regularly was not common, and it was believed that opening the pores to water was dangerous and draining. Elizabeth bathed only once a month, which was considered unusual even for royals. Instead, she relied on perfume to mask unpleasant odors. Bad smells were believed to carry diseases, so anyone entering the royal presence had to smell sweet. Elizabeth also had dental issues. A dentist didn't exist at that time. Her teeth decayed, turned black, and emitted a foul smell. Makeup was a significant part of Elizabeth's beauty routine, but it contained dangerous chemicals like lead. She wore multiple layers of makeup to conceal the scars from smallpox, which destroyed her face. However, these makeup practices caused skin problems and hair loss over time. Towards the end of her life, Elizabeth suffered from severe depression and even refused to have a mirror in any of her rooms. King James VI. Imagine being the king of two countries, Scotland and England, and having the power to shape the history of both nations. Now imagine never taking a bath in your life. That was the case for King James VI and I, who had a strange and stubborn fear of water. He became the King of Scotland when he was just a baby, after his mother, Mary, Queen of the Scots, was forced to abdicate. He grew up in a turbulent and violent time, surrounded by plots and conspiracies. He learned to be cautious and cunning, but he also developed a phobia of water. He hated bathing so much that he would only wipe his fingers with a wet cloth instead of washing his hands. He thought that water would make him sick or weak. He ruled Scotland for 36 years and then inherited the throne of England from his cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. He was the first king to unite the two kingdoms under one crown, but he also brought his dirty habits with him. He smelled so bad that people could hardly stand near him. He wore thick layers of clothes and perfume to cover up his stench, but it only made it worse. He was a king who made history, but he also made a lot of people hold their noses. King Henry VIII. Henry VIII was the king of England who loved to wash himself. He had a servant who wiped his bottom with a cloth after he used his velvet toilet seat. His doctors told him to stop washing and use urine instead, but he ignored them. He also made his own medicines in a lab, but they did not work. He was cleaner than most royals, but he still lived in a dirty world. Other kings and queens never bathed or changed their clothes. They lived in smelly palaces where people threw their waste everywhere. The water was polluted and the people were sick. It took centuries for things to get better. In the 19th century, people learned how to fight germs and diseases. They built sewers and pipes and made soap and toothpaste. They bathed more often and washed their hands. They realized that cleanliness was good for them. Today, the royals of Europe live in clean and modern homes. They have everything they want. They still have servants, but they treat them well. They are not afraid of water or urine, but they have some weird habits that make them special. King Charles II. In 1651, King Charles II had an unusual project. Whenever he slept with a woman, he would pluck a few hairs from under her skirt. He then stitched all those hairs together to create a wig. Over time, the wig grew thicker and became a man made entirely of female hairs. Once the wig was large enough to cover a man's head, Charles II donated it to the Scottish drinking club called the Beggars' Benison Club. The members of the club loved the wig so much that they wore it during their ceremonies. One person even stole the wig and used it to start his own club, where people were required to kiss it. In 1822, King George IV revived this strange tradition and collected locks of hair from his lovers. He kept them in a box as his personal collection. Like Charles II, George planned to make a wig out of the hair, but unfortunately, he passed away before he could fulfill his dream. Queen Maria Eleanor, like Joanne of Castile, held a deep attachment to her departed husband. When King Gustavus Adolphus passed away, she couldn't bear the thought of parting with him. To keep his memory close, she made a remarkable decision. She carefully took his heart from his chest and placed it in a precious golden box. Every night, she positioned the box above her bed, allowing her to sleep in the presence of his heart. This unusual practice even involved her daughter, Christina, who would sometimes join her in bed to feel the connection with her beloved father. The impact of this extraordinary experience stayed with the young princess throughout her life. Some monarchs were cannibals. In the past, certain body parts, known as mumia, were sold by executioners to apothecaries and doctors. They believed that these body parts contained a special life force, especially when the person had died suddenly or in an unfortunate accident. It was thought that by consuming these body parts, one could absorb the remaining lifespan of the deceased. Historical records show that some monarchs, such as Charles II and William II of England, Francois I of France, and Christian IV of Denmark, actually used these body parts in their medicine. Although it is uncertain whether Elizabeth I herself consumed them, two of her favorite royal physicians recommended it to their patients. When James I of England suffered from gout, his physician, Theodore de Mayerne, suggested a powder made from scrapings of an unburied human skull, along with herbs, white wine, and whey to be taken during the full moon. However, since the king disliked eating human bodies, an ox head could be used as a substitute for him. The Spanish royals slept with saintly body parts. In the past, medical treatment often involved religious practices like praying, fasting, confessing sins, and helping the poor. It was believed that by doing these things, God would show kindness to the sick person and provide healing. The Spanish royal family had a particular belief in the power of saints. When a member of the royal family felt seriously ill, doctors would go to churches and monasteries and take body parts or even whole corpses of saints. They would then place these saintly remains in the bed of the sick person. Can you imagine a young princess waking up from a fever and seeing a grinning skull laying next to her? The royal family took these superstitions to extreme lengths. Joanne of Castile. Joanne of Castile, the mother of Emperor Charles IV of Spain, traveled with her deceased husband's body. Instead of burying him, she kept his body in her room for over a year, pretending he was still alive. She would sleep with the body at night and insisted that he was merely asleep. Joanne treated the body with great respect and didn't allow women to enter the room, fearing their lustful intentions. Emperor Justin II. Emperor Justin II, who took charge of the Byzantine land in 565, had some very strange habits. After 9 years of ruling, he began to show signs of mental decline and his behavior became increasingly worrisome. He would run around the palace, making animal-like sounds and attempting to jump out of windows. He even hid under the bed and behind pillows. But the most peculiar habit of all was his tendency to bite his servants. It's hard to imagine why he would engage in such unusual behavior. We hope you enjoyed this video about the weirdest habits of royals in history. These historical anecdotes revealed how some monarchs lived in ways that we would find shocking and disturbing today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell to get notified of more fascinating videos. And don't forget, history is full of surprises, especially ones that make you go, ew.